What was your "it seemed like a good idea at the time" story? I let my 14-year-old cousin at the time try driving the family car. I was like 18 back then or 20, and I told him it's easy to drive an automatic car. Basically like driving a go-kart. I told him gas was right and brakes were center. I forgot to mention that changing the gear to D will automatically have the car move. We both panicked and hit a freaking tree in front of us at probably 1 mile per hour. Luckily we were in our neighborhood by a dead end. Snow water skiing. Me driving the snowmobile across a snowy field and my little brother skiing behind holding a tow rope. 2 broken legs. Me and my friend used to play a game where we threw a Swiss Army knife up in the air at nighttime and then ran away from it, with the knife part out. We did similar with a potato gun. We had it rigged so you could slap the bottom and that would ignite it. So we shot potatoes up in the air like mortars at night and ran until we heard the thud of it hitting the ground again. When I was a kid I tried to ride my bike up the trunk of a tree so I could kick off and try to land it and it'd be really cool. Turns out a tree trunk is rounded and so you'll just slip off the trunk and hit your head on the tree. My brother still gives me crap about trying to ride my bike up a tree. Please say you were in your 20s when this happened. Shooting each other with fireworks on New Year's. One landed directly in between my eyes. Luckily, it didn't go off and I wasn't injured. And with the 4th of July around the corner, I feel it's pertinent to remind everyone to please be safe with your fireworks out there. Hey, you know those degenerates who you stay out drinking with until sunrise every other day? Why don't you live with them for the last 2 years of law school? That won't cause any issues at all. Cue 2 years of abuse to my body and liver and more than a little strain between me and my friends at the time. Overall it was fun, but definitely not a good idea. So I was in Uganda with my family, and we see a large, about 5 feet tall, curled up leaf hanging about 8 feet off the ground. We're told that these leaves curl up and fall out the trees, and they're pretty heavy, so it can be dangerous to have it fall on you. My dad and I think won't it be helpful of us to get this thing down. So, we're there whacking it with sticks, trying to get it down, to no avail, when my dad says, "Hey, climb up on that wall there, son, and jump. Grab it and then pull it down." Well, that sounds like a swell idea, Dad. So I do just that. I don't manage to get it all the way down, but as soon as I hit the ground, I get this burning sensation in my elbow. Turns out there's a hive of Ugandan mud wasps living in this specific leaf, and they do not take kindly to young men trying to tug their home down. So I'm just sprinting back to the office where the rest of my family is sheltered from the sun. And I practically have 2 elbows on one arm at this point while, as my dad described it later, an army of large, black blots give chase. I make it back inside and my arm is numb, except for the searing pain in my elbow. Thankfully, there was no further reaction. The pain lasted only around 3 hours and the swelling was down by the end of the day. That being said, it was the worst pain I've ever felt. Even worse than the time I broke my arm into 3 pieces while arm wrestling. Playing sled dog with my newly rescued husky and a longboard on the hilly streets near my house in college. Snapped my right forearm in half and had to walk a mile back home to get a ride to the hospital. I ran across the street with my eyes closed. When I was 14, I didn't get hit by a car. However, I ran into a tree headfirst and cut my face and knee open. For all of you asking what my thought process was, it is as follows. Who am I kidding? I have no idea what I was thinking. I'm sorry, I just laughed so freaking hard. So back in the day my brothers and I were shooting a bow and arrow behind our house. We had a proper backstop and a nice target on a bale of hay. After about an hour we were getting bored and one of my brothers had a stroke of genius. Let fricking light one on fire. So there we are wiring rags to arrows and soaking them in gas and shooting stuff. Didn't take long and half the yard was on fire. We'd shot pretty much every flammable thing we could burn in the yard. Since we were running short on stuff to shoot, my brother decided to launch one in a 45-degree arc over the woods behind the house. We all watched, saw, laughing and giggling. When it hit the apex was when it dawned on us that this was in fact a really stupid freaking idea. All 6 of us sprinted off into the woods in the direction it had been shot. Wasn't hard to find, it had lit an entire little meadow on fire. So we ran around stomping out fires for an hour. When we finally got the fire put out, we were sitting by the creek and my oldest brother looks at us all and says, "Dad never hears a word about this." Starting a career in television in the late 90s. I mean, the internet is cool and all, but it's still way too slow to ever compete with 200 TV channels, right? When I was 15, my best friend and I just got new BB pistols. They were the Walther CP99. Looked identical to the real Walther CP9 with a removable magazine and no orange tip. We were playing with them in the backseat of his mom's car. They weren't loaded. We were just excited and wanted to take them out of the box. She knew we had them out and didn't think anything of it. This was the late 90s BTW. Before going back to his house, she went through the drive-thru at Burger King. You know where this is going. She's ordering food with two large 15-year-olds holding guns and pointing them at everything. Fast forward 30 minutes. We are pulling into their driveway and his dad comes running out of the house yelling hysterically. One of his friends just called and said he heard on the police scanner that they were looking for his vehicle with two white males holding a female hostage at gunpoint. Few minutes later, several police cars pull in the driveway, jump out with guns out, making everyone get on the ground. It took some explaining on his dad's part about us being a bunch of dumbasses. 15-year-old me couldn't figure out what all the fuss was about, but 34-year-old me looks back and realizes that might be the dumbest thing I have ever done. I went on a solo trip to Costa Rica when I was 26. I'm a fairly petite female. I speak no Spanish. The eco lodge I was staying at helped me arrange a guide for an all-day hike. We were flown by 4-seater plane into the jungle, a 26-hour walk to the nearest town. We landed. Jose and I hopped out, and the plane took off again, leaving me, Jose and his machete alone for the day. Thankfully it went okay, but as soon as that plane took off I realized I had made a bad choice. On a rainy day, I saw a hitchhiker near the university asking for a ride. He looked the part of a student. Although I never pick up hitchhikers, I felt sorry for him standing in the rain and gave him a lift. It felt like the right thing to do at the time. He told me where he was headed, so I went out of my way to drive him there. The guy just kept staring at me and said very little. When we arrived at his destination, he wouldn't get out of my car, no matter what. Finally, when a police officer came along, I told him to hop out or I'd call the cop over for help. That ended it, but if the officer hadn't come by, I have no idea what might have happened. Applying for a PhD position. Crappy pay and no free time in sight for the next 3 years. Thanks to it, I despise working in science like never before. Getting taped to a cart, drunk, during a music festival, and then getting rolled down a hill towards a lake, where a lot of people pee. I had just finished this bike ride with my scout troop and we ended it at the side of a river. So waiting for our parents to pick us up, the boys all go to a rope swing to frick around in the river. It was absurdly shallow. The furthest swing would still land you in 3-foot water. Average lazy swing was 2 feet deep or so. Mom comes. Some dad hollers at me that she's arrived. I run back until I can see her getting out of the car and yell, "One more swing, Mom, I'll be right back." She seems in a good mood. Says okay, starts chatting with other adults there. So not 2 minutes later I walk up to her with a broken arm. I had gone back for that one more swing, screwed up and planted my wrist into the shallow water, broke my arm, and got out of the water saying bye without telling the kids what I'd done. Just sorta walked up to my mom. "Hey, I just broke my arm. Sorry." She was not pleased. Like, seriously, flick my bick. You had to go for one more swing. Come on, let's go get a cast, you idiot. In college, a large group of us hiked up to this abandoned mine shaft at night. Took turns squeezing through a small crack in the mountain. The main entrance was closed off. Walked down a long dark corridor with our flashlights. Then set up a campfire in one of the large clearings at the end and proceeded to get wasted. All fun and games until a rather large girl got too drunk and couldn't walk on her own. Getting her out of there was a whole fricked up ordeal. Thought a few times during the process that we were going to have to leave her there in the dark and go get help, especially when my flashlight started to die. You're lucky you all didn't suffocate to death. Building a fire in an enclosed space in the mountain. Making bows and arrows with my friends when I was around 13. To ensure that the arrows got stuck in some tree or whatnot, we duct taped 80mm nails at their ends. Then we went shooting around the nearby field with complete disregard of others' positions. I did not take an arrow to the knee, but to the palm of my hand, remembering the friend saying to the other, "No worries, I won't hit him." Luckily nothing serious came from that. When I was a teenager, my brother, cousin, and a couple of friends decided to try to steal a Coke vending machine by tipping it over into the back of a Ford Ranger pickup and take off. We were like, crap, we'll just put it in our garage and have plenty of soda and we'll refill it. We had one of those keys for them. It was 2 in the morning and we're all wasted. This was mid-90s mind you and way out in the country. There was a little store with the machine. We backed up and my brother and I got it rocking back and forth and finally balled into the back of the truck. It lifted the front end of the truck off the ground and as soon as it landed in the bed my buddy started hauling butt with me trying to jump into the bed with the vending machine and my brother hopped on the back of the vending machine riding it like a majestic horse. But we forgot to unplug it and for some reason it was just enough that it pulled the machine out the truck with my brother on it and crashed to the ground. We were young, dumb, and bored as heck, but it made perfect sense to me then. Nothing like committing dangerous major felonies just to cop like 3 cases of soda and a crappy obviously stolen fridge. LOL. I was riding my bike and tried to be faster by leaning while turning, like a motorcycle. I obviously ended up falling and the skin on my knees and elbows got ripped off. Dating a girl that had a crush on me. Didn't know her all that well beforehand other than that she was relatively quiet and an outsider at school. Relationship eventually ended because I wouldn't let her tie me up and put a knife to my throat during sex. Zero issues with the tying me up part, but the knife was a deal breaker. She did a presentation that compared some hentai crap to the Bible in our religious instruction class a few weeks after we broke up. The teacher actually let her show a few minutes of a hentai movie before intervening. At least she gave fair warning about the knife and didn't just have it queued up for once you're already bound. I practiced my golf swing while standing on my bed. It was raining outside. I managed to take out 2 lights with the first swing, the bedside lamp and the overhead light. That one crashed down on my head. Broken glass everywhere. When I was in 1st grade my 2 friends and I invented a game where we kicked our shoes off of the swings to see who could kick theirs the farthest. Somehow mine ended up on the roof and the janitor had to get it, and I only cried for like 20 minutes. I once poured wax down the sink because I was trying to make a wax waterfall, thinking that the wax would harden as it dropped down. Summer camp one year, everyone was getting in barrels to roll down this giant hill. It seemed like tons of fun so I hopped in one and down I went. Well, the whole time it felt like I was being beaten up by the ground, and I was bruised pretty much from head to toe with a few cuts and scrapes too. Being a young teen I of course had to act tough and like it was awesome, but it really was not awesome. I thought I was maybe just a wimp or did it wrong. But looking back it definitely seems it was a dare type thing everyone wanted to prove they were tough enough for. I'm guessing many more than just me had the thought of, well, that wasn't fun. Friend of mine's brother did this in an old garbage can. Ended up going end over end down the hill instead of rolling on the side. He's a paraplegic now. At a bachelor's party last year, we rented a small house in a small town in the middle of nowhere. The second day we are there, we decide to go to a local state park which had a nice swimming hole. As we were getting ready to get out of the water, one of the locals mentioned a rope swing on the other side of the little island in the middle of the lake. Always being the adventurous person, I decide to swim out with a few of my friends to check it out. There are a couple of locals there and we watch them go first. It is a pretty high swing off a decent drop and the water looks to get pretty deep, pretty quick. At this point I should mention that I am about 6 feet 3 inches and 250 plus pounds at this point in my life. I should also mention that I have very little upper body strength. I've been a cyclist and runner most of my life and rarely worked out my upper body. I take the rope swing, go to one of the highest points I could, and launch off. As the swing hits the lowest point, my hand slipped just a bit, but it's enough for me to react by dropping my knees just a bit. As this happens, my feet hit the ground. As that happens, my hands let go of the rope. My left knee smashes into the water's edge. which is much rockier than anticipated. My hands plunge into the water, which is also much rockier than I anticipated. I coast out into the water on my belly and float for a few seconds before regaining my composure and slowly swimming back into shore. My leg is bleeding and my right hand hurts like heck. We go to a local urgent care. Long story short, I ended up with 12 staples in my left knee to close the gash from the rocks. I had x-rays on my hand after the weekend and found out that I essentially shattered my right middle finger. I ended up needing surgery and now have 3 screws in that finger. It has most of its functionality, but it does hurt like heck from time to time. But dang if that rope swing didn't look like a good time. Clearly you haven't watched enough fail videos, because if you did you would know that rope swings are never a good idea. Also, your pet will catch your mini drone. You can't jump on a moving treadmill. And any sport that involves swinging an object to hit a ball will break the TV when played indoors. Going on a 4-day bender with no sleep. Ended up getting the crap kicked out of me and required 7 stitches in the back of my head. Spending 2 months wages. Losing my brand new £1,000 phone and pee off numerous ex-girlfriends by declaring my love for them. Oh, and I was hungover for about a week. Haven't had a drink for 3 months now because of my stupidity. Way to go staying sober. Came out of a party at uni and my friend told me to jump into a snow pile head first. Thought it would be really funny until the snow pile turned out to have a layer of solid ice on the top. Blacked out for a couple seconds and cut my head pretty badly. There was a diner that I ate at in college 3 or 4 times a week. It closed down due to university expansion, and my buddies thought, let's go reminisce one last time. That ended with cops with guns drawn in our face and a weekend in jail. I don't know if this counted, but I introduced myself to the boy I had a huge crush on via text message. I didn't remember how I got his number and insisted that I can be his best friend. Hi, I'm from class A. I know you like a girl in my class. You actually can share your feelings to me. No, I don't like her. Well, if you want to share any story at all, you can text me. I thought I was the most genius person ever. Since I made my first move to a boy I like, I just wanted him to know that I exist. But now I cringe every time I think about how stupid it was, even after 10 years. I stuck a googly eye up my nose when I was 3. It got stuck. My mom had to pull it out with tweezers. When asked why I did it, I wanted to see if it fit was my response. I still get the compulsive urge to put things in my nose to this day, usually earbuds. No idea why. Don't do it, just don't. When I was working in retail for the first time, I was hired with 3 other people as seasonal employees for Black Friday and holiday season, and towards the end of the day, they would send us to go bring in any shopping carts buggies that were outside, and usually we would have to push it in ourselves because we didn't have one of those machines that would push it for you, and someone suggested, why don't we just make one huge cart line and push it in instead of having 4 different lines, and everyone agreed, so we get everything and lined up about 60-70 something carts. Took 3 of us to push it as it was so heavy, and the other guy guiding it at the front. We managed to get inside the store and into the cart area, but being a whole line and heavy as crap, we couldn't stop it in time, so it blew past the rail, and unfortunately on the other side of the cart area is where we kept the dishwashers, refrigerators, TVs that are supposed to be going out for delivery sold. We ended up breaking a TV and denting a fridge. Unfortunately, the store manager was doing his night rounds around the store and saw the whole thing as he was coming down the main hall. We got yelled at pretty bad and immediately just told us to go home and to see him in his office tomorrow morning. It seemed like a good idea though. LOL. Just remember that momentum equals mass times velocity. You would be surprised how frequently this knowledge comes in handy in normal life. Decided to get high and go to a yoga class because I thought I would get a better mind-muscle connection. Turns out the class I decided to go to was being taught by an Eastern European yoga psychopath and had me bending my body in ways I have never done before. Never again. High yoga does sound fun. Throwing firecrackers out of the car while pulling into my friend's driveway. It was all good and fun till one went off in my lap. And that's how you came to be known as John Dongless at work. My cousin and I were sitting on his balcony on a breezy day, and we decided to spray some of my pepper spray into the air to see what it smelled like, into the wind. Oh, how our eyes burned. There was alcohol involved. Dating my co-worker even though I have been down this path once before. We lasted for a while before I caught him flirting with a new girl in front of me. I found out a lot of things after the fact and it nearly destroyed me. Happens to the best of us. Well, I am currently on vacation with my family in Colombia. We went to an island off the coast of Nicaragua, but still owned by Colombia, called Providencia last week and spent several days there enjoying the island vibes. It actually was a good idea for us to rent motor scooters to get around. They are a blast, and being mobile like that on an island makes everything more fun. What seemed like a good idea at the time was cruising around the island Sunday night with no protective gear whatsoever. It was a really comfortable night and I was in shorts and flip-flops. No shirt, helmet, pants, shoes, or much motorcycle experience. The bikes didn't come with any gear and I certainly don't have any of my own. Even if I did, I wouldn't have worn it because it was a really nice out. I imagine at this point you can see where this story is going. I came around a corner fast and found myself coming up very quickly on a speed bump. Everything is very poorly marked, and my immediate reaction was to brake. With the front brake. Braking was a good idea. The thing is, anyone who has ever ridden motorcycles can tell you front brake on a curve. No bueno. So, here I am back on the mainland, stuck in a hostel with a broken bone in my foot and plenty of road rash while my family explores the northern coast of Colombia. The thing is that it could have been so much worse. I'm lucky to be alive, and I know it. That said, road burn is no fun. My friend and I got high one day after school, but my mom hadn't been grocery shopping and we had no snacks. So my friend and I coated raw Pillsbury croissant dough in cinnamon sugar and tried to eat it. Also concerning the munchies, my friend's parents had a huge box of Hot Pockets and one snow day we got stoned and I ate around 6-9 in one afternoon, which the human gut really isn't equipped to deal with. We had 5 people who wanted to ride 2 quads at the same time. 2 people on each max. We ratchet strapped a fridge dolly on the back of one, making sure it was really tight secure. Took the 5th person, ratchet strapped him in with bungee cords rope and took off. It lasted 3 minutes tops. Lost 2 straps. Badly skinned up hand. From tipping over. Yeah, it seemed like a good idea. Work sent me to the Chicago area and I got out super early one evening and decided to hitch a train to a bar I've always wanted to go to. I carefully planned a trip so I could make it there and back with enough time to see the bar and without driving so I could drink. Perfect plan. I took an hour and a half's worth of train rides, walked for 5 minutes, and found that the bar was closed for a private event. That's how I spent my night yesterday. Capital F. Me and my cousin found my dad's hunting rifle when we were about 10 and we decided to play with it. I am from the countryside while my cousin is from a town and I decided to show him how cool I am and how I know all about guns. Long story short, I pointed the rifle at him fully sure the safety was on until I heard the click with the barrel point blank pressed into his head. I got such a fright. I have never touched a gun again in my life. Even nearly 20 years later, gives me the shivers even thinking about it. Using a still full bottle of acetone nail polish remover as a dildo. I was 15, dumb, and frisky, and the shape was perfect. It leaked. Getting really high before a work Christmas lunch at a fancy restaurant. I was 19 in my defense, but dang it was awkward trying to talk to people and act normal. Such a bright restaurant. For a film like Class, we needed to record a large variety of sounds with our sound recorders. I like the sloshing sound of my water bottle, and was curious how it would sound if it was flipped. To do this, I flipped the water bottle and tried to record the sound it made. Well, the bottle hit the ground, the cap came off, and water spilled everywhere. It got my notes wet, my shoes wet, my friend wet. I didn't know there was so much water in that bottle. I didn't even get a good sound out of it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.